ever felt the need to change anything about yourself because it's not what society considers perfect or normal? It is that voice in our heads, that nagging self-doubt that urges us to conform, to be perfect in the eyes of the world. But what really is perfection? What is this unattainable standard that society has constructed? A standard that we often feel pressure to reach. A stereotypical ideal of perfection appears to be a variety of impossible ideals. A slim and attractive physical appearance, high levels of success and wealth, intelligence beyond measure, harmonious social relationships, unwavering conformity to societal norms, and the complete absence of any emotional or psychological struggles. It is an eye-catching checklist, isn't it? A checklist that often lures us to tick every box. But here's the truth. Perfection remains forever unattainable, regardless of how many changes we make or how many boxes we tick. When I was 9 years old, I, for the first time, felt the relentless need to change something about myself. I was diagnosed with a hearing disability, which meant I would be wearing hearing aids for the rest of my life. My hearing aids soon turned into a spotlight on my imperfections and differences. Everyone stared weirdly at them whenever they saw them. But who can blame them? You only see grandpas with hearing aids, not 9-year-olds. I wanted to change. I wanted my hearing disability to simply disappear, to avoid those weird stares or awkward moments when I didn't hear something. However, through time, I realized that this hearing disability was actually a superpower. Yes, my hearing aids highlight my hearing disability, but there were some cool perks that came with them. I could lower the volume down so I heard nothing. Or I could raise the volume up to hear sounds a distance away. It was kind of like a bionic superpower. In our world, we often try to change things about ourselves that we have no control over. How we look, how we feel, even how people perceive us. We just chase those impossible standards and try to change ourselves without actually accepting. Through time, I realized that to think this way about ourselves can be draining and damaging to our own well-being. Therefore, I found myself on a journey to help me tackle and change this mindset. And it wasn't linear. Most of the times, I found myself falling back into this mindset. However, I discovered 6 skills that helped me tackle this mindset and challenge the voices in my head that kept telling me to change. I want to share with you these skills to hopefully also help you tackle this mindset and find beauty in who you are. I present a tool I created. It is a mnemonic titled Accept. Each letter stands for each of the 6 skills I mainly use. Acknowledge your uniqueness, cherish mistakes, cease comparisons, embrace realistic expectations, practice self-love, and transform your perspective. The first skill is to acknowledge your uniqueness. Picture this. You're walking through an art gallery. Now, imagine every piece of art was the same, kind of complying to the perfection standards of art. That would be boring and dull, right? You see, what truly captivates us in an art gallery are those artworks that are bold and different, those with unique shapes, unique colors, unique techniques. Similar to how in the real world, the most captivating things are the most beautiful ones. Think about a rare nature phenomena or an exotic animal. When you see these, you don't often think, oh, this is too weird or different. I better not approach it. Often you just want to see it and admire its true beauty. When you have a uniqueness, it makes you stand out and be a more interesting individual. And even if you feel you should hide your uniqueness, you shouldn't, for it is beautiful in the eyes of others, even if you don't see it or feel it. This is proven by a survey I conducted with my friends a while ago. I asked them to send a picture of a scenery they find beautiful. These were the results. Can you see everything is different? There's flowers, mountains, sunsets, etc. Showcasing how these standards are so subjective. There's not just one version of beauty or one version of happiness. For every standard, there's unique views and perspectives per person. For me, it was hard to accept the thing that made me different from others, my hearing aids. However, acknowledging that uniqueness can be beautiful soon made little 9-year-old me start to show off this quality. Whenever I had the chance to talk about my hearing aids, I did. I loved telling people about my hearing aid story, for it made me a more interesting individual. and little 9-year-old me found herself making a lot of new friends. The next skill is to cherish mistakes. Who here has spent relentless nights thinking about a mistake from years ago, wishing you could just go back and fix it? I've been there. When I was little, I used to beat myself up for failing exams, punishing myself because I didn't get the mark I wanted, without actually learning why I got the mark. Because of this, I kept repeating the same mistake over and over again, crying once again because I got the worst mark. However, one day, my grandma sat me down, and we realized that what I was doing was just a silly mistake, turning this silly mistake into a powerful lesson. And the next time I had an exam, I got the best grade. You see, society has taught us to think that mistakes are bad things, and because of this, we often regret them. But mistakes are so powerful, and it is normal to make them. They're not setbacks, they're powerful steps towards growth and improvement. The next step is a game-changing skill, is to drop the habit of comparing yourselves. Who here has scrolled through social media feeling down because you think everyone's got it better? I've been there. It messes with our heads, right? However, remind yourself that everyone's journey is different. We move at our own pace. You don't need to change because someone else seems better. One day, I was watching a Marvel interview when one of the actors said, "You're only in a competition against yourself." And this stood out so much to me because we often want to be better than the rest, prettier, wealthier, smarter. We put ourselves into a competition that is unrealistic and unachievable. However, what this actor said just showed me that we must focus on our own path, growing into the version we want to be without the need of comparing ourselves towards others. The next skill is to embrace realistic standards. When I was little, I used to wish for a lot of things that were out of my control. For more money, to be happier, and to my hearing disability to just disappear. I wish I could just conform to those perfection standards and tick the checklist. However, I soon realized that these standards are so unrealistic and no one is able to ever achieve them. Embracing realistic standards is basically acknowledging that there are things out of our control and actually working towards the things we really want without the influence of these perfection standards. We must acknowledge those things that are out of our control, like our feelings, and embracing them. For example, embracing we can't always be happy, or in my case, embracing my disability. And because of this, I work for my own standards and actually work towards what I really wanted without the influence of wanting to be perfect. The next skill is one of my favorite skills, is to practice self-love. It consists in making yourself your own best friend. You gotta talk to yourself like someone you love. In a world that often strives for perfection, loving yourself is kind of like a superpower. For me, loving myself meant doing all the things I loved. Listening to my favorite singer, watching my favorite TV shows, skincare, painting, playing the piano. And because of this, I found myself being a more fulfilled and confident and happier person. I stopped caring about the perfect version I had made of me and actually loved myself for who I truly was, all my imperfections and flaws. The sixth and final skill is to transform your perspective. There's a quote I love which says, "Living ain't about a perfect life where nothing happens. Living is when you can experience all that you can, the good and the bad." When you constantly picture an ideal life with endless friendships, wealth, and happiness, it can seem appealing. However, living that way every single day can become dull and predictable. Transforming your perspective is basically acknowledging that there's beauty in every moment in life, whether it brings joy or challenges. There's beauty when we cry, when we have our heart broken, when we feel lost. Although these moments are unpleasant, they make ourselves be a more experienced and wiser person. And it is because of these moments that we appreciate the beauty of those joyful moments better. It is about transforming your perspective, similar to how I did with my hearing aids. I embraced this imperfection and transformed it into a superpower. It is transforming the ideal life society has constructed and understanding that the diversity and richness of life lies in its diverse moments. These 6 skills might look different to you depending on the challenges that you have. However, just keep reminding yourself that you're already perfectly imperfect and that there's nothing to change about yourself. Thank you.